Hello, welcome back. I'm Miniature Mike, and today I'm going to do a little different video that I talked about doing quite a few months ago. And that is, I want to show kind of a project that I've been working on to try to best kind of characterize, how to best cost, especially custom characters. What's a good way to do that? And I kind of have coming from a statistics background. I figured it'd be kind of fun to try to use statistical tools to, in this case, model existing data. So basically, all the characters we have, their stats, their abilities, and how can you leverage that data to then use it so that you can make a model. So that if you want to make custom characters, you essentially just kind of stick in your variables, stick in your hit points, your certain force powers, whatever, and then it'll basically spit out on a range, or maybe what an appropriate cost for the character would be. So before I jump into that though, I just want to let you know, with the new year coming around, it's been crazy busy, so I haven't actually released a video in I think about 2 weeks. So with just back to the work schedule, starting school again, so work and school, having a family, like a 16-month-old, so she's pretty great. Takes a lot of time though. So my goal is to try to keep doing one video a week, which is my goal. So definitely won't be doing kind of what I was doing when I first started the channel, which was two, maybe even sometimes almost 3 videos per week when I was really getting rolling. But I think you could probably expect maybe 1 per week, maybe once every other week. But I've really appreciated the feedback, the comments, the engagement from the community. It's been a lot of fun, and I've really appreciated it a lot. So I have a couple other videos that I've prepared. One of my next videos is going to be on doing some of the separatist leaders. I do like my separatist faction. Some of the leaders I like a whole lot more than others, and you'll see when I come out that video. But for this one, if this isn't your cup of tea, jumping into statistics, I'll keep it pretty brief and surface level. Don't have to watch it, but it's definitely something that I'm interested in doing, and this is just kind of my first step. So I'll show what I got here. So what we have going on is I made a database of all the characters in Star Wars Minis. I got rid of duplicates because there's like 10 stormtroopers, and what you have here is you got the character, you got their cost, and then key stats, the HP, defense, attack, damage, and I'll build on this, but I just included what's the raw number of special abilities, do they have reinforcements or not, because that's actually factors into cost. A big one, are you melee or not? That's a huge one. How many force powers or things do you have force power wise? I'm going to alter that in the future. One that isn't here that is critical is commander effect. I'll add that in the future, as well as being able to add that as a variable for commander effect, because obviously some characters, their commander effect is key to their cost, obviously, and I didn't include that yet. It takes a lot of work. And then another important one I figured was max damage, because you'll have some characters, they'll do 1 attack, 10 damage, but then you have other characters and they'll have 3 attacks, 20 damage each, so 60 damage. I'm not including, damage you'd get from Deadeye, Cunning Attack, all that stuff, which would obviously make it much higher, but just your base standard damage, essentially. I won't get into all of these, but essentially what I did is I figured out, okay, what of these is the most important statistic, or what are the most important factors for predicting or modeling what the cost of a character should be. And one thing to keep in mind is, when they were making the game, they weren't using these types of things. It's just kind of gut feel, so there's plenty of error in the game itself. You'll have characters that'll cost one thing and they really shouldn't. So the whole point of this is just kind of do the best you can with the data available. And so what I have here is, when I was going through and doing this initially, I'd compare each of these variables and I'd fit them to the cost. And I found that it really wasn't fitting very well when I was trying to do 1-to-1. But then when I took, for all you math people out there, when I took the natural log of the cost and I basically changed kind of what my output was, it made the model fit much better, much more usable, much more powerful. So you can see here where it's okay, what I'm going to do is now I'm going to model these factors such as HP, defense, attack, damage, or max damage, or melee. I'm going to model them and see, okay, at what levels, like if my hit HP is 20 and my defense is 15, and I have 3 special abilities, what should my cost be? And so I took that, and I actually discovered when I did it, defense was not a significant variable, which was fascinating. So when I did the linear model, it was saying not defense isn't important, we don't include this. HP though was the most important factor, which I thought was fascinating. So here's what I got. I'm not going to go too much into it, but this is just my least squares model that I fit to all the data. What you have right here is the leverage plot, essentially kind of showing how well is the natural log of cost, how well does it fit to, special ability count, attack, hit points, reinforcements, yes or no. This is a variable I'm going to take out and tack it on later, and so what I'll probably do with these is I'm just going to remove these characters from the model, just totally remove them. Or no, I'll include them in the model, but I'll add this later. And then, so I'll probably do something like that. And then one of the biggest ones was melee. Are you melee or are you not melee? And that actually is a big difference. That's a big shift in terms of what your cost is going to be. So what we have here, this tells you essentially like how big or how important is that variable essentially. As you can see, HP biggest effect, then whether you're melee or not was the second biggest effect. The number of special abilities you have was kind of next. And of course, there's a lot of nuance. Don't get me wrong. If you have like stealth or certain abilities, you will cost more than others. And that's nuance I'm going to dive into as I iterate through this more. Max damage was important. Like, do you do a ton? Do you not do very much? Are you a wedge who does no damage? Or are you a character that does 80? Reinforcements was important because if you're a character with those powers, that essentially determines your cost. Attack was somewhat important, but not as important. And then, kind of what your force outlook was like was not nearly important, not as important, but still significant. And I don't have it pictured here, but your defense, it was actually insignificant. It was like, like defense, you could give someone a lot of defense, and the other stats are going to play a much bigger role in telling you what the cost should be. That's essentially what's going on here. And so what I did is then I used all of these estimates right here, and then made essentially a model, which I'll show in this chart here, and I compared them to the original cost. So what I got here on this is the original. This is essentially just a nice regression chart where I have the original cost of all the characters, and then what this is this is what my model predicted the cost of the character should be based on all of the data that's available and what the character's actual values were. And so you can see here, and what you had to do is you get the predicted value, and then you had to unlog it, and it actually fits pretty well. There are plenty of outliers and things that you're like, it doesn't really work. But there's some interesting cases as well where you're like, okay, I think that actually does a pretty good job, and this is far better fitting than it was before. Before, it was a terrible fit. It predicted terribly, whereas now it's much more interesting. So if you go to the high end, you could have a character like right here. Okay, this is Luke Skywalker. According to my model, it's like, okay, he should probably cost like, maybe 129, somewhere in that range. Maybe like a high of, whatever this is, or a low of maybe 100, or a high of, in this case, 135 or 140. So it's saying, maybe 129, and you can debate that, of course. Should he cost more? Does he cost enough? But my model says, I think he should cost a little bit more. You have characters right here where it says, like, okay, they think, based on these circumstances, it's based on what I have, like Darth Bane, for example, should cost, in this case, 134. You could totally make an argument that doesn't make sense either. So you're going to have, especially with the higher people, I'll need to figure out a way to better model them, which I will. But you also have other interesting ones where you come down here, you have a 63. I don't know exactly who this is. There aren't very many of them. But it says, they should be a 103 because they're so strong based on the available information and data that I put in. So then you have other 84. I think this one right here is Darth Revan. Yeah, Darth Revan. The predicts Darth Revan should be like a 75 or 76. And I don't know if I'd go that low, but I kind of agree. I love Darth Revan, but maybe with the model that I have, maybe he should be cost a little bit less. So it's really interesting. And just the last view that I will show you, and then I'll be done. Don't want to bore you guys too much, but if you're tuning in, I appreciate it because it's been a really, really fun to work on this project. So you have instances like this where you have, okay, Quinlan Voss Infiltrator. My model so far predicted maybe about 42. And you can do give or take a little bit more than that for sure, like maybe plus or minus 5 or 10, depending on other new kind of other factors going on, like what kind of abilities does he have. His real cost is 34. This one made him cost a lot more than that. So whether that's right or wrong, I'm not going to get into it. But the whole point of it is just showing that this model is improving, and my goal is to be able to, when I make custom characters, input all the variables into the model, and then it will give me a good range that I could choose from. Because sometimes you look at custom characters and they have their stats, and then they'll have like, oh, it costs 100, and I'm like, are you kidding me? This person is busted. They should cost like 150. And the reason I'm doing it this way is I know there's a lot of power creep, but I really feel like it's important that when you make custom characters, that they should try to fit in with the original game as much as possible. Because when I go on Blue Milk and I look at custom squads, and I look at the other things like the V sets and stuff, they're really cool ideas, but a lot of the time, hardly any of the custom squads integrate original characters anymore. Only a few of the very powerful ones, and personally, I just don't like that very much. I understand why it happens, to make things more interesting, make things fresh. That's just how every game is. So, yeah, in my opinion, obviously you can't necessarily balance people to like Rebel Storm, but maybe somewhere kind of, towards the middle or even towards the end of the original release. So going down here, you're like, okay, Quinlan, Arsene Jedi, Hunter, 49, 41. The Bigs, in this case, was a 23 on average, 26. Chewbacca and Rage Wookiee. Now this is a case where it was way over the top. This doesn't include Savage, so having Savage could bring your cost down. I don't know. So this said 63, absolutely way off. But there's reasons, the high HP drove that up. Not including defense, did not affect it. Great damage. Also, he's a shooter, so that helps too. So this is an instance where the model's wrong. But there's a lot of other instances where, like, okay, R2-D2 16 and 18, 23 and 30, 23 and 25, 33 and 24, 11 and 9 and 11. So you can go all the way down here, and I think does a good job. Like Human Force Adept, 10 and 10. So in some cases it agrees with the actual characters that what the real cost is. In sometimes it suggests things that are different, things that I actually kind of like more. And in some cases where I'm like, yeah, the model's wrong. The model needs to be improved. So yeah. Anyway, that's really all I want to talk about this time. But I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave comments and ask questions if you have, if you want to learn more about what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do. But like I mentioned, I come from a statistics background, and I thought this would be a really fun opportunity to be able to basically pair that with Stars Miniatures, since there really is a lot of statistics, probabilities involved with the whole game in general. So, in case you're curious, the software I'm using is Jump Pro. It's a student version, since I'm a student right now, so it's normally really expensive. Another software I use is this one right here called R. For all you people interested in statistics, it's free. There's a lot of videos on YouTube that can kind of teach you how to get around it, how to use it. But it's definitely a lot less user-friendly, but very powerful. So, yeah, like I said, please ask questions. I'd love to engage with you kind of about what I'm working on here. Another update, my wife and I have been working on our 3D printer. We actually haven't printed it in a bit since we moved. Got it broken out, tweaked some things, and it's been working pretty well. So I may look out for it, but I may start offering some of my 3D printed cases online, which I know some of you actually requested, which is they're pretty cool. I think they'd be pretty fun to start maybe potentially selling. But I did leave a link, so if you are interested in those, you can. If you have a 3D printer yourself, feel free to go ahead. But yeah, that's all I have to say this time. So I'll, like I mentioned, try to do one a week from here on out, but no guarantees. But either way, I appreciate the engagement. Please like, please subscribe, and again, keep commenting because I really appreciate it. So until next time, I'll see you later.